Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello, and welcome everyone to another edition of the Playbook for Performance podcast. I'm Shauna Corden, your host. Our mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. This month we're talking all about the new quiet quitting, which is actually the old quiet quitting called not being engaged at work, polarization in honor of our upcoming book, and some HR tips. And specifically today we're going to talk about 10 tips or 10 steps for HR dealing with polarization in the workplace. So in my interviews preparing for the book, when I talked to leaders who talked about their employees who were polarized and how they wouldn't talk to each other, they'd actually be in the same meeting and say, tell so-and-so to tell so-and-so that this thing is not ready, because they would not speak to them directly. And the sources of this polarization had anything to do with how they felt about a political issue, how they felt about pandemic issues, or it could be even something else that, somebody's vegan and somebody's not. People chose to not work together and not communicate with these people. But these things are actually performance management issues, meaning you can be fired for not performing. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into it. The 10 steps for HR. Now, in general, I really recommend as a coach that the team work together on this, the entire team. It's not just the two parties that won't speak to each other, because it's affecting the whole team. It's creating extra work. It's creating an awkward silence at times. It's causing problems. And so the two people need to recognize how much it's affecting the whole team. Step 2, as the HR person or the manager in charge, these steps can be taken by management as well. But all the managers that I interviewed, they said, yeah, I just send it to HR. Poor HR. I have such feelings for you. But we really want to state that communication and teamwork are performance expectations. If we look at the continuum of performance, if we're talking about below expectation, meets expectations, which is our quiet quitters or non-engaged, exceeds expectations and greatly exceeds expectations, communication and teamwork are part of all of those things, and they are definitely required to even meet expectations. We want to ask the parties if they're willing to mediate the concern. If they're not, I'd say goodbye right then and there, because they have shown they are being subordinate. They are, insubordinate. They are volunteering that they are not willing to do their job. Okay. I would engage each of them with a written prompt, because all of this polarization has to do with someone feeling blocked by the opposite party. Remember that in polarization, people are trying to create certainty in their environment by eliminating any ambiguity or distrust of how people will behave. Okay? So I would engage each of them with a written prompt. How are you feeling blocked by their colleague? Give them as much time as they need. And then each party to read their response without interruption. So no scoffing, no derisive remarks, passive aggressive, under the breath, anything, to really truly listen. Then we need to ask, is this true? Or has their polarization, this whole black and white thinking, really colored how they see the situation? And the biases are overwhelming true perspective. If they surrendered that belief, where would they be? For example, if they thought all vegans were evil, if they were willing to surrender that belief, where would they be? Are they willing to do so? Because as a group, you can probably come up with some examples of vegans who are not evil. Okay? What group rules should be in place to keep the peace? So these should be architected, of course, primarily by the two that are causing the problem. However, the rest of the team should have a vote as well, because they're the ones who are having to deal with all of this discomfort that's coming from these people not speaking to one another. Set a 30-day check-in with corrective action documentation to uphold the ground rules set by the parties, recognizing that if they violate these, they are basically resigning. So that's my recommendations for the HR team. Of course, the compliance and regulation in your industry may require more than this, but do recognize that teamwork and communication are performance management issues, and if people are not willing to work as a team, if they're not willing to communicate, they can be terminated. So, here's your field work this week, because we always say that coaching without action is just entertainment. We really want you to test the method. Not every tip that's been recommended here may work with every culture. So just like when you're trying a new recipe and they say adjust spices to taste, that's what we want you to do here. But we want you to feel confident that communication and teamwork are performance issues and grounds for termination. That is universal, empirical, it's there. I don't like to say always, I don't like to say never, but in this case, it's true. And petty behavior due to polarization is not tolerated. So the more that we eliminate this sort of cancel culture in our organizations, the more pleasant the workplace is going to be, and we won't see this petty behavior. So if I can help facilitate a workshop for your team to get beyond this polarization, to help people see that the stories that they're telling themselves are far too black and white and we need to add some gray and color, I would love to do that for your team and make your work life a lot more pleasant and build some better leaders. So if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. We love having you here following us on the YouTube channel. If you need help, if you have comments, you can always send an email to podcast@shawnacorden.com or shauna@shawnacorden.com. Until next time, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shawnacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.